Hello friends, welcome to Raut's Race. I am Loknath, and today in this session we are going to discuss about digestion, absorption and assimilation of food. That is one of the sections of Home Science Optional. And you know that the nutrients taken by the organism, including human, they are get digested and absorbed and assimilated inside the body, so that the different functions or energy requirement of the body can be done. Is it right? So what is digestion, what is absorption, what is assimilation? The basic concept, basic understanding today we are going to discuss in this session particularly. Okay, so see what is digestion. So friends, before going to discuss about digestion, we know that the nutrients taken by the human are of two types, macronutrient and micronutrients. The nutrients which are required in the large amount, large quantity, that are called, we can say what macronutrients, they carbohydrate, protein, fats. Is it right? But the nutrients which are required in a small amount, small quantity, are called micronutrients, that like we can say minerals, vitamins and water. Is it right? So again, these nutrients are also divided into two types, as your organic nutrients and inorganic nutrients. This we can say carbohydrate, protein, fats, these are organic nutrients, and minerals, that water, these are called inorganic nutrients. Is it right? So that is. Next, come to digestion. What do you mean by digestion? Digestion is a biochemical process. Biochemical process that is taking place, the chemical process taking place in the living organism is called biochemical process. Is it right? And in this biochemical process, what happens? The foods taken by the organisms or eaten by the organisms, the nutrients are complex form. They get simplified. They get simplified in the presence of a biocatalyst, that is called enzyme, so that it can be converted into simpler and observable forms. Simpler and observable form which can be taken by the utilized by the body. Is it right? The process of conversion of complex food materials, food components into simpler observable forms in the presence of biocatalyst, that is enzymes, which are called catalyst, biocatalyst, is called digestion. So after digestion, what happens? Carbohydrates, proteins and fats, they converted into simpler and observable form, and these can be then utilized by the individual tissues and cells of the body to perform their various activities. Is it right? So let us see. This is called digestion. Next, come to absorption. What do you mean absorption? When this simpler materials or simpler food components or nutrients are taken or flow through the bloodstream, or taken into the blood or lymph, that is called absorbed through the mucosa, they get absorbed or they flow into the bloodstream and lymph, they called absorption. But when this reaches, this blood makes it reach to different tissues or cells, the individual cells or tissues, they use the nutrients in the form of energy to perform their various functions, that is called assimilation. So digestion, in here to digestion means conversion of complex food into simpler forms, number one. Then absorption means it is taken by the blood or lymph to various regions, various places, various cells or tissues of the body, and when the tissues use this energy, use this nutrient, then that is called assimilation. So these are the three steps: digestion, absorption and assimilation, which take place in the body, so that the nutrients or the food components used or taken by us are properly used and energy is released. Is it right? Now let us see. So digestion Digestion is a, as I have told, it is a what biochemical process. It is a biochemical process. Biochemical process. That means what food is broken down in the presence of enzyme into what simpler forms, simpler and observable forms. Observable forms. That is, this is a complex food. That is simple food, observable food. Example, we can say carbohydrates are carbohydrates. Let us say starch. Starch is in the presence of amylase, salivary amylase. Starch in the presence of salivary amylase converted into what? Maltose. So it is here, you see, starch is a complex form of carbohydrate. Is it right? It get converted into simpler forms, that is called maltose. So it takes place in the enzyme. Here amylase is an enzyme. This is an enzyme, amylase. This is called salivary amylase. Salivary, which is secreted from the salivary gland. So this process means the food, complex food is converted into simpler and observable form in the presence of an enzyme, a biocatalyst, and this is called, the process is called what? Digestion. Is it right? And the example is like that. Is proteins also in this process. Carbohydrates are broken into simpler form. Proteins are converted into what? Peptides, peptones, amino acids we can say, and fats are converted into fatty acid and glycerol. Is it right? Though sugar is converted into disaccharides, monosaccharides. Complex sugar is converted into disaccharides, then monosaccharides. Monosaccharides are the simpler forms. The glucose, fructose, lactose, galactose, these are the simple forms of what? Starch or carbohydrate. Like the proteins are converted into what? Converted into peptones, peptides, amino acids. Amino acids are simpler forms. And then your fats are converted into fatty acid and glycerol. We can say proteins are converted. Proteins. This is your number one. Number two, proteins. Pepsin. You can take pepsin as enzyme. Pepsin, it is converted to amino acids. So fats, lipase, it is converted to fatty acids and glycerols. Fatty acids plus glycerol. Fatty acid plus glycerol. So these are the what? Process of digestion in the digestive system. Let us have an idea about the different digestive systems and where, in which part of the digestive system or the alimentary canal, which foods get digested. We know that the human alimentary canal consists of the following parts. Number one, buccal cavity. Sometimes it is also called as mouth. Number two, stomach, esophagus, or food pipe. We can say food pipe. Number three is your stomach. The bag-like structures. Next is your small intestine. Next, large intestine. Next is your rectum. Last one is anus. There are 7 parts of the human alimentary canals. These are 7 forms. Literally, if you draw this structure, you will find that see, this is stomach, this is buccal cavity, this is esophagus, this stomach, large intestine, small intestine, rectum and anus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these are the 7 parts of the alimentary canal. So buccal cavity, the 4, 5 esophagus, stomach, then is your large intestine, small intestine. Is it right? And with this part, actually the digestion starts in the buccal cavity. Digestion of food starts in the buccal cavity, that is here. Digestion of food starts here, the buccal cavity. Here digestion of starch digestion take place in the buccal cavity, and the first processing of digestion take place actually in the buccal cavity or in the mouth part of the alimentary canal, in which the salivary amylase perform the digestion process or carry the digestion process in the buccal cavity. The simple carbohydrates are digested in the buccal cavity. Is it right? Carbohydrates are digested in the buccal cavity, and then the food passes into the stomach. Some part of the digestion take place in the proteins, some starch, other carbohydrates, they get digested here, and actually the digestion, most of the digestions also take place in the stomach, and some digestion, remaining digestion take place in the small intestine. Is it right? The digestion is completed in the small intestine part. This small intestine, the inner part of this intestine, the narrow part is called small intestine, and the digestion is completed. Digestion starts in the buccal cavity. Digestion starts here buccal cavity, but completes in the part. Which part? Small intestine. And small intestine also perform another important function in our body, that is absorption of nutrients. The digested nutrients or simplified nutrients or simple nutrients are absorbed in this part due to the presence of the finger-like outgrowth that is called belly. The structure that is, we can see. So due to presence of belly, villi, these are the finger-like outgrowths, projections, or outgrowths. You can say outgrowths. They help in the absorption of nutrients. Nutrients are simplified nutrients in this part. Next, large intestine. In case of large intestine, absorption of water take place. Water, some salts are also absorbed in the large intestine. Is it right? The small intestine, absorption of nutrients or digested food, and the large intestine absorption of water. Is it right? So this is called, actually digestion starts, again speaking, digestion starts in the buccal cavity and completes or ends in the small intestine. Is it right? 3-step digestion. Number 1, digestion takes place in the number 1 buccal cavity. Here digestion starts. Digestion also takes place in the stomach. Digestion also takes place in the small intestine. So in these 3 parts digestion taking place, digestion of food take place. So digestion of food take place in these 3 parts, buccal cavity, stomach and small intestine. Is it right? So this is the somewhat a typical diagram to in order to understand. Is it right? The digestion process. Now let us see how the digestion is taking place, in which part, what type of digestion take place. First, let us see digestion of carbohydrate. Digestion of carbohydrate. Digestion, as I have told, digestion of carbohydrate takes place starts from the mouth. Number 1, mouth, or you can say buccal cavity. Buccal cavity. So digestion starts, digestion of carbohydrate takes place in the mouth or the buccal cavity. In this part, what happened? What starch is converted into what? Maltose in the presence of salivary amylase. The enzyme here, salivary amylase, which is secreted from the salivary gland, a pair of salivary glands located in the cheek region, that is called salivary amylase. They pour their secretions in the buccal cavity at the mouth, and the starch get digested into maltose in the buccal cavity or the mouth. Is it right? The number 1 step, the digestion starts in the mouth. The starch is converted to maltose in the presence of an enzyme called salivary amylase, and that salivary amylase is secreted from the salivary glands. Is it right? Salivary gland. Next, come to digestion at the stomach. As I have told earlier, digestion of carbohydrate also take place in the what? Stomach. So either starch is also converted into maltose and isomaltose. Maltose plus isomaltose. Starch is converted to maltose and isomaltose in the presence of intestinal juice, pancreatic or intestinal juice. In the presence of pancreatic juice or intestinal juice, the starch is converted into simple sugars, maltose, isomaltose. These are the simple sugars or monosaccharides. These are called the simple sugars or monosaccharides. So digestion, this is just second step. That means digestion takes place in the buccal cavity, then digestion takes place on the what? Stomach. Next, come to digestion. The remaining part of digestion takes place in the which part? Intestinal. Next, come to intestine. Digestion is take place in the intestine. Here, what happens? This maltose is broken down. Maltose is broken down into glucose. This gives glucose plus glucose in the presence of maltase, in the presence of an enzyme called maltase. Friends, okay, maltose is converted into glucose plus glucose, that is in the presence of maltase. Is it right? is a lactose. In that way, lactose is converted to glucose plus fructose, glucose or plus galactose, glucose plus galactose in the presence of an enzyme called lactase. Lactase, is it right? Presence of an enzyme called lactase. Next is your converted to sucrose. Sucrose is converted into glucose plus fructose, in the presence of a sucrase, in the enzyme sucrase. So see, this is your digestion completes. So digestion in the mouth, digestion in the stomach, digestion in the intestine. In the intestine, digestion is completed. So maltose is converted to glucose plus glucose, lactose is converted to glucose plus galactose, and sucrose is converted into glucose plus fructose in the presence of sucrase. The enzymes here maltase, lactase and sucrase. This is all about the digestion of carbohydrates. Now let us see digestion of proteins. Digestion of proteins. So digestion of proteins. Number 1, actually digestion of protein starts. Digestion of proteins does not take place in the mouth, as I have told earlier. Digestion of protein starts at the stomach region. So let us start first. Right one, stomach. The first step in the digestion of protein is called stomach. So dietary proteins in the enzyme of pepsin. This enzyme is called pepsin. It is converted to what? Polypeptides. Okay friends, in the stomach, in the alimentary canal stomach, what happens? Proteins acts in the presence of pepsin and the protein digesting enzyme. It is converted to polypeptides. So in the next come to small intestine. So first step, again speaking, the digestion of protein starts at the stomach, then come to small intestine. In the small intestine, proteins simplified in the presence of trypsin and chymotrypsin. Though in the small intestine, proteins in the presence of trypsin and chymotrypsin is converted into peptides plus amino acids. Okay, so this is proteins, trypsin and chymotrypsin are converted into peptides plus amino acids. Is it right? Next, peptides in the presence of peptidase, or we can say carboxypeptidase. In the presence of carboxypeptidase, the presence of carbohydrate carboxypeptidase, they are converted into simple amino acids. Okay friends, first steps, number 1 step देखो, proteins in the presence of trypsin and chymotrypsin converted to peptides and amino acids. These amino acids are very simpler forms. They do not get again digested, but the peptides obtained in this case, they again get digested into simpler form, that is the amino acid. That means protein is directly converted to its simpler form, that is amino acids, in the presence of carboxypeptidase. So this is what about digestion of the proteins. Is it right? Next come to dipeptides. So So we know that peptides of the or tripeptide, dipeptides, is it right? Different types of peptides are this. If we talk about dipeptides, di मतलब double, two peptides. Dipeptide is converted into amino acids also. Amino acids in the presence of dipeptidase. Dipeptidase. ऐसे tripeptides is also converted into amino acids in the presence of tripeptidase. Is it right? If we will talk about the dipeptides, polypeptides, in this case polypeptides मतलब more than two peptides, that is dipeptides or tripeptides. Dipeptides is again converted into simpler forms of protein, that is amino acids, in the presence of an enzyme called dipeptidase. Like in that way, three peptides are containing three peptides, they converted into amino acids in the presence of tripeptidase. Is it right? So this is what all about the digestion of proteins. Let's come to digestion of what? Digestion of fat. Number 3, digestion of fats. The fat digestion is completed in the presence of what? In the stomach region. First, let us, as we again speaking, as I have told you earlier, only sugar digestion takes place in the mouth, but fats and proteins and fats or lipids get digested in the stomach and the small intestine. Is it right? And so in the triglycerides, somewhat complex process in the digestion of fats. Actually, the digestion process in the stomach is not taking place properly. What happens in this case? The stomach floats in layers of enzyme, the other component is solid food. As a result, fat digestion takes place. Little fat, some little amount of fat, little amount of fats get digested in the stomach region. In the stomach region, some little amount of fats get digested because of what? Layers above. Because of the, as we know that fats are nothing but the oily foods or oils. They float in the stomach. They float. So float in the stomach, forming a layers. As the fats are consist of oil foods, they float, making a layer, forming a layer in the stomach. So digestion is not taking place properly. So some little amount, very small or no digestion takes place in the stomach region, but actual digestion takes place in the intestine, small intestine. In the small intestine, so in the small intestine, fats are broken into what? Glycerides, fatty acid plus glycerols, in the presence of an enzyme called lipase. They convert into glycerides. Okay, glycerides, they are converted into what? Monoglycerides, that is simple form of glycerides, monoglycerides, in the what? Small intestine. So next, these are all the what? Digestion process of what? Carbohydrate, proteins and fats. Now let us see the digestion of nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are also get digested. Nucleic acids, as we know that nucleic acids are the DNA and RNA. deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acid, ribonucleic acid, deoxyribose, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acids, they also get digested in the alimentary canal into nucleotides. They are converted to nucleotides by the enzyme nuclease, and the nucleotides are converted to nucleosides. So nucleosides are the simpler forms of nucleic acid by the process of nucleic acid digestion. So this is the digestion of what? Nucleic acid. As we have already discussed in the digestion of carbohydrate, protein, fats and nucleic acid. Let us summarize the process. Summary: end products of different digestion process. End products, production of digestion, end products of digestion. Let us discuss about. So dipeptides, as we know that dipeptides are converted into amino acids. Amino acids, number one. Dipeptide is converted to amino acids. Maltose, that is what? Maltose, that is sugar, is converted to glucose plus glucose. Glucose plus glucose. Next come to number 3, lactose. Glucose plus galactose. Next come to number 4. Number 4 is sucrose. Sucrose is converted to glucose plus fructose. Next come to what? Nucleotides, amino acids, nucleic acids. We can say nucleotides is converted to nucleosides. Next one is your what? Nucleotides is converted to nucleosides. Nucleosides is converted to into what? Sugars and bases. Sugar plus nitrogenous bases. These are the simpler forms of what? Nucleotides, that means nucleic acids. And another thing is that number 6, what? Fats are converted to glycerides. So these are the summary of the end product of the digestion, and these are all the simpler forms of all the complex materials. Is it right? So this is the end product of digestive process. After this completion of the digestion of these food materials, that is carbohydrate, protein, fats, and they get absorbed into the bloodstreams or limbs. Okay, that is when they are soaked, absorbed. That is the energy float. The nutrients are simpler nutrients float in the blood. They are limb. They are called absorbed. When absorption, we can say absorption. Absorption means nutrients are taken into blood stream and lymph. Bloodstream and lymph. This is called absorption. Next, assimilation. Assimilation means use of nutrients or energy by the individual tissues or cells. Okay, so after digestion completes, then absorption takes place. Absorption what means the nutrients are taken into the bloodstream and lymph. Then they are through this bloodstream and lymph, they reach at the individual cells or tissue level, and the tissues are the cells. They utilize this energy, and that is called the process of assimilation. So these are the three important processes which take place in the alimentary canal or in the digestive tract or digestive system of human, other also in the other organisms. Is it right? This is all about what? The digestion, absorption and assimilation of nutrients in the human alimentary canal or human body. This is all about for today's class. In the next class we will discuss some more important part of this. Is it okay? Till that, bye.